Coming up, Border Patrol agents are already in New Orleans making arrests. We'll have the latest on Operation Swamp Sweep. Also, Border Patrol's presence producing passionate and even chaotic activism, but also staunch support for law enforcement. We'll have both sides of that. And a new state law that aims to protect those agents making arrests is challenged in court. The state's Attorney General defends it.
From your local election headquarters, here is This Week in Louisiana Politics.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Fred Childers. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. As you might have guessed, we have a lot to cover, so let's get into this. This week, around 250 federal border agents came to Louisiana to launch a months-long immigration crackdown, also dubbed Operation Swamp Sweep, in southeast Louisiana and into Mississippi. Agents plan on arresting around 5,000 people in an immigration crackdown that's supposed to last 2 months. Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bonvino is in charge of the operation. He has been the White House's go-to guy for large-scale immigration crackdowns. A protest in New Orleans against the Catahoula Crunch crackdown. That's another named operation in southwest Louisiana, and it's resulted in a very heated city council meeting on Thursday. WGNO reporter Kenny Lopez was there and has the story.
Dozens of activists showed up here at New Orleans City Hall to stand up to Mayor-elect Helena Moreno and the New Orleans City Council, wanting them to stand up to ICE and Border Patrol.
United will never be defeated!
Immigration protesters were removed by NOPD officers from City Council chambers, some carried out with their feet in the air.
Everybody exit out the back, please.
Whose house? Our house!
This after a heated public comment session between protesters and Mayor-elect Helena Moreno and the New Orleans City Council.
At this time, I move to suspend public comment on this item. 7 yeas, no nays, public comment suspended. We're on recess.
The chanting and yelling forced City Council to take a recess.
You have to leave, exit.
These immigration activists were here voicing their concerns over the immigration crackdown known as Catahoula Crunch.
They need City Council to step up and do more. All they've done is say, they're coming, here's what you should do is carry your passport. That's unacceptable. They need to do more than that, and it's not just undocumented people. It's people who are green card holders. It's actually black and brown Americans who are gonna suffer indiscriminate racial profiling, violent arrests, family separation.
We're demanding that City Council pass an ordinance creating ICE-free zones on any city property.
They're coming here and they want to separate and snatch as many as 5,000 human beings from our greater city. That is unacceptable, and we will feel it.
In the meantime, the council has set up an online portal for citizens to report potential abuse from federal immigration officers. But activists say it's still not enough.
You have to leave, exit.
Please stop. We want the City Council to take a stand like other cities have.
You have to leave. You have to leave, exit.
From New Orleans City Hall, I'm Kenny Lopez.
Some city leaders in New Orleans say the target of 5,000 arrests is unrealistic and would require detaining more than just violent offenders. Others say, however, if you're going after violent offenders in these sweeps, more power to you. U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana tells us if that's the goal, he's in full support of Operation Swamp Sweep.
If you're in there, if you're a member of a gang, if you're from Venezuela and you're part of Trinagua, we want you swept up. I think there's 100% approval. Let's get those people off our streets. I want it ideally to be focused on those people.
He goes on to say it's also important to continue cracking down on the border itself to keep violent offenders from coming into the country. A federal judge handed the state a win in a lawsuit challenging a new immigration law aimed at enforcement. Act 399 had passed out of the regular legislative session earlier this year with a stated purpose of preventing the interfering of federal immigration law enforcement during their operations. The ACLU filed a lawsuit calling it vague, overbroad, and meant to chill free speech. On Thursday, a judge denied the ACLU's request for a restraining order against the state to stop these operations. Attorney General Liz Murrill defends the law. She released this statement. It reads, It became apparent at the hearing today that the ACLU filed a lawsuit over nothing. There is no First Amendment problem with Act 399. And you might recall, Murrell has issued this warning ahead of the sweeps. Quote, individuals who interfere with ICE, Border Patrol, or assault law enforcement are committing a state crime and will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We're going to continue our coverage of the Border Patrol's operations in South Louisiana. You've heard what activists, the AG, and Senator Cassidy have to say about them. But up next, I'll talk with an immigration attorney here in Louisiana who says he's ready to represent those who might get swept up in these operations.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back to This Week in Louisiana Politics. As we've mentioned, and you've probably heard by now, Border Patrol and ICE will be conducting operations in and around New Orleans over the next several days. So I want to bring in David Rosas. He's with the Rosas Law Firm. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So you're prepared to represent any immigrants, either documented or undocumented, that get caught up in this operation, correct?
Sure. That's mainly what my law firm does. We represent people who are running through the removal process, are being put in detained proceedings, detention centers here in Louisiana and throughout the country, actually.
So I wanted to get your take on Border Patrol's Operation Swamp Sweep in New Orleans. I think there are a couple of different names throughout different areas, but they said in one of their press releases that they aim to arrest 5,000 immigrants. So that's a pretty specific number. So what does that tell you as an attorney?
I mean, I think that's the largest number out of all the immigration enforcement raids that I've seen since the start of this. I think when we go back to Los Angeles, I haven't seen those numbers in any of the sweeps per se throughout the United States so far.
Do you already have clients?
No, I don't. I mean, I have a number of clients who have been detained in Chicago and Charlotte and New York and LA, but I have not received any of this from this sweep that started a couple of days ago.
So the officials with ICE and Border Patrol say that they're targeting people with a criminal record. So if people without a criminal record get caught up in this, is that where you step in? Are you also willing to represent people who do in fact have a criminal record?
Yeah, I represent anyone. I represent immigrants who have been charged with crimes, who have not been charged with crimes. Unfortunately, the majority of people who are being detained in Louisiana now, I think the recently numbers I saw were over 80% have no criminal record at all. Many of the people that I represent have been here for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And so, in my opinion, unfortunately, this is going to happen in Louisiana as well.
So we've seen in some cases throughout the country that some people getting involved in this, just citizens getting in the way of ICE and Border Patrol agents, and maybe even in some cases disrupting those operations. Attorney General Liz Murrell, Louisiana's Attorney General, has issued a warning saying that getting in the way of these operations could land you in jail. She also warns officials that they could get into trouble for trying to disrupt these operations. What's your reaction to that?
From my understanding, last year they expanded the obstruction of justice obstruction statute, and which would essentially put people at risk of being charged with a crime. I think, in my opinion, as a lawyer, I think it's overbroad and vague. And I think, in fact, I think I read somewhere recently, maybe yesterday, the ACLU just filed suit against in federal court against the state of Louisiana and the Attorney General's office on this statute, because it's really infringing on even advocates, like immigration advocates, as well as lawyers who could be vaguely interpreted as helping an immigrant thwart against this enforcement.
Yeah, and the field office, the FBI field office in New Orleans, has also issued a warning that says we will not tolerate assaults on law enforcement officers in Louisiana, and there will be consequences. So, assaults, I think, you had mentioned vague terms. That is certainly not a vague term. But
yeah,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I totally agree with that. I mean, an assault is having someone believe they're about to receive a battery, at least in the state of Louisiana. And so I think clearly that would be something that should be, should be prosecuted. I mean, we all agree in no violence. But I think what I'm more concerned about from an immigration attorney's standpoint and from an immigration advocate standpoint is that we are providing people with their rights, and that lawsuit, for example, if you look it up, challenging this Act 399 is basically saying, hey, I should be allowed to tell people their rights as non-citizens in the United States, to know your rights, know you have a right to remain silent, know about judicial warrants and what that requires.
Yeah, and some of the attorneys on that side, you're right, it is Act 399. I think I read the same thing. Some lawyers, and probably yourself, would describe it as fear-driven enforcement tactics. And is that something that you're willing to go after as well?
Yeah, you're talking about the law, or are you talking about the enforcement?
The enforcement part of it.
100%. I mean, look, I'm a U.S. veteran. I tell this in every interview I do. I believe in a strong border. I fought for this country when I was 18, and I believe in my favorite country in the world. However, a lot of these people, especially in Louisiana, I mean, if you remember, I was here for Katrina. This is who rebuilt this community, and I think coming in like this, and you're going to sweep most people who don't have any criminal record and who have been here for more than 20 years, who rebuilt this community. And I think the only benefit that comes out is fear.
I think the people who were in favor of that law that passed would say, hey, what is wrong with going after the criminal element that's not supposed to be here in the first place?
Going after which law?
The Act 399.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if you were narrowly tailored that law, but the way it's written, it's very vague. I mean, technically, if I'm advising an immigrant that they have rights, that they don't have to open a door without a judicial warrant, it could arguably be that I'm in violation of that law as an attorney. And so that kind of ties my hands and other immigrant advocates trying to protect people, both citizens and non-citizens, against unnecessary enforcement, against unnecessary rules.
All right, David Rosas, I have a feeling we'll be talking to you again. I hope you make yourself available for us.
I will, thank you.
All right, thanks for coming on. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Mardi Gras in Baton Rouge brings a bundle of economic growth and support to the area. But as the city parish now faces budget cuts, some parades may not roll through in the future. Louisiana First News reporter Michelle Masson explains how one famous parade crew could feel the impact if the parish can't pay for police protection.
It's a beloved local tradition for young and old alike in our area, the Spanish Town Parade. That's why people are starting to pay attention to what the failure of the Thrive EBR plan could truly mean.
I think people thought I was playing when I was talking about the Thrive Initiative. I wasn't playing. This is our reality, and we're going to make Baton Rouge work.
Mayor President Sid Edwards saying security for a major parade can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And events like the Christmas Parade, Live After 5, and the Spanish Town Parade may be at risk if the city parish stops absorbing these costs.
Do I want the parades? Yes, my grandchildren love them.
For the first time in 45 years, Spanish Town Parade organizers say they've been told they'll have to pay for police presence for the next parade. They say rising insurance, venue fees, and now security costs could force them to make some tough decisions as well. Baton Rouge Police Chief TJ Moore says event organizers may need to pay at least part of the cost for security moving forward.
When we're looking at budgeted $4 million for overtime and we're spending about $8 million, we have to make cuts in overtime places.
Reports show the 2024 Spanish Town Parade cost the city parish $65,000, requiring over 100 officers and 1,200 overtime hours. Local leaders now considering a policy to evaluate which events bring enough return on investment for public support. And they say the Spanish Town Parade pumps around $4 million into the local economy. Michelle Masson, Louisiana First News.
For now, the future of Baton Rouge's Mardi Gras traditions remain uncertain as the 2026 season approaches. The state's Secretary of Revenue is moving on to a new job already. Secretary Richard Nelson has been named the state's community college system president. Nelson was named Secretary of Revenue last year by Governor Jeff Landry. Nelson served as a state representative before running for governor during the last gubernatorial election. During his time in office, Nelson focused on reforming the state's tax code. Nelson tells us that effort resulted in, quote, the largest tax reform ever in Louisiana. Governor Landry named the Deputy Secretary Jared Coniglio as his replacement. Now, Governor Landry says of Nelson, quote, under his leadership and with the hard work of this team, we passed historic tax reform that has already helped attract tens of billions of dollars in new investment to our state. Nelson starts his new job January 1st. A new law could bring some changes for those receiving Louisiana unemployment benefits. State officials say people filing new claims must show 5 work search activities each week. That includes applying for jobs or going in for interviews. The law goes into effect on the 31st. In a heated meeting, the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices delayed voting on updating guidelines for childhood vaccines. Members were expected to vote on whether to continue urging newborns receive the first dose of the hepatitis B shot. One proposal would limit recommendations to children whose mother tested positive for the infection. Before the meeting, Senator Bill Cassidy called the committee totally discredited. Cassidy, who supports vaccinations, says removing the recommendation will not protect children. Millions of Americans' health care premiums are expected to spike next month. That's if Congress fails to act before the month wraps up. Washington correspondent Raquel Martin reports as lawmakers scramble to find a compromise on the future of the Affordable Care Act.
The pressure is on for Congress to tackle rising health care premiums. Come December 31st, expanded Affordable Care Act subsidies will expire.
We have 12 working days for Congress to act.
At a Tuesday press conference, Democrats urged Republicans to simply extend the tax credits. They emphasize even veterans, roughly 250,000 of them, could lose coverage, potentially overwhelming an already strained VA system.
They're not prepared to also take the influx of people who will find eligibility there. But many veterans are just going to be flat out stuck.
Following a morning huddle, some House Republicans expressed openness to a short-term extension.
Whether it's 2 years, 1 year, with modifications.
But House Speaker Mike Johnson is hardly excited about that prospect. Johnson says right now, Republicans are floating alternate solutions to bring premiums down.
And we're pulling those ideas together, and there will be a Republican response to this.
President Donald Trump is lobbying hard for his idea.
I want the money to go to the people.
Create health care savings accounts for each individual American.
Let the people go out and buy their own health care.
An absolute sham. They literally have no effective replacement.
Part of his deal with Democrats to reopen the government, Senate Majority Leader John Thune promised a Senate vote on ACA tax credits by December 12th. In Washington, Raquel Martin.
Democrats argue that the two issues holding up a decision on the ACA are a lack of input from the president and the Republicans' request that cutting abortion funding be a part of that discussion. Up next, we'll have a look at the week ahead on your local election headquarters. Stay with us.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. According to President Donald Trump, National Guard troops will arrive in New Orleans by Christmas. This comes after Governor Jeff Landry requested back in September that the White House send 1,000 troops to help fight crime. Landry wanted them in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport. The president did not mention whether troops will deploy to Baton Rouge. Mayor Sid Edwards says he welcomes additional help while dealing with a police shortage. All right, we're looking ahead to the coming week now. Lawmakers are meeting in various committees throughout the week. On Wednesday, the Senate Select Committee on Women and Children will meet at the Capitol. That'll happen at 9 a.m. On Thursday, the House Committee on Education meets at the Capitol as well. That meeting will take place at 3 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay informed, and I'll see you next week right here on your local election headquarters.